Welcome to another episode of the Quiet Work Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about finance, how access to greater capital may help you with cash flow, may help you with your overall finances, and obviously fuel your growth in 2026. I'm bringing in an expert when it comes to that matter. Eddie, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about the company you represent, and we'll start it with that.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. First of all, Matt, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate the invitation. My name is Eddie DeAngelis. I'm the founder and CEO of Qualifi LLC, and that's Qualify with an I, LLC, FI for finance.
There you go. Yes, we'll make sure to leave the link below the video as well so people can find you there as well. Now, what made you start a company? How long ago was it? And yes, how did you end up in the finance industry in general?
Whew, that's a long story, Matt. I don't know if we have enough time, but I basically, one of our things that we say about Qualify, we're for entrepreneurs, created for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. So I've been a small business owner my entire life. I'll be 59 in December this month in a couple weeks. So I've been around for a while, been in business for about 30 years. Started on the street corner in Philadelphia, selling perfume and cologne on a little stand with two milk crates. Is how my journey started into business outside of a worker office, and I eventually built it into a little wholesale company and retail, and just went on from there. To make this a pretty short story, it kind of led me into, I was selling all types of general merchandise. In addition to the perfume and cologne, I started going to New York and Manhattan and in the city of opportunity, I like to call it. That's where everything is, right? Whether you want to sell watches, handbags, clothing, you name it, they have importers and wholesalers all over Broadway for any product that you want to be in business with. And we're going probably back, 25, 30 years ago. That just opened my eyes up to the world of business and opportunity. So I started buying all kinds of stuff, whether it was handbags, watches, costume jewelry, lipstick, perfume, you name it, general merchandise. But perfume and cologne was my starter and my foundation. So I eventually just built wholesale retail business, did very well, and grew the business in a short couple of years. And that kind of led me to the screen printing and embroidery business, which is like custom printed apparel. So we were doing, t-shirts, sweatshirts, promotional items for companies, colleges, high schools, just printable sportswear. And I was in that business. That was my family business for close to 20 years. I'd say about 17 years, until the time came where a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to start a new company with him and jump into the world of business finance. And I was like, whoa, number one, I've been working for myself for so long. This is my family business. I don't know if I could just let go like that. But I went with him to New York to look at a couple other broker shops similar to what they wanted me to kind of take on and build. And I was very intimidated. We went to like the DeMarini building across from the New York Islanders complex in New York. And I walked into this brokerage firm and they had like 30, 40 college kids standing there all with the headsets on and yelling on the phones and talking about business financing. So for me, it was very intimidating at first, and stayed there for 2 days and came back and like, man, I don't know if I could, not if I'm ready to run a company of that size and that kind of magnitude yet. Long story short, they kind of be like, yeah, you're going to be fine. You're going to do it. Just, let's just talk about it and let's work out the logistics and the, compensation, everything. And kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. This was back in like 2013. So I felt like at the screen printing company, although I was doing well, not great, but I was doing decent, making a living. I just felt like I felt stagnant there. And I just felt like there was something more. I wasn't being completely challenged. I just felt like something was missing. So I trusted my gut and I jumped on and tried to start this business finance business and started learning it. And I started this company for a friend of mine and started building it up from the ground floor. Had to go to New York and meet all these lenders and try to start learning the product. And it took me a good 6 to 12 months just to have a good foundation of an idea of how to build this business. Over the next couple of years, we end up building the broker shop and started doing really well, had everything in place, our systems, our sales team and our lenders and our network. And, back in 2013, there wasn't a lot of different finance products available in the market like there are today. So the industry really transgressed in a good way for businesses. So after 3 years of running that brokerage firm, I decided to part ways because we weren't seeing eye to eye on the direction of the company. So I decided to leave and open up my own shop which was called Amerifi LLC in March of 2017. So here I am. I sold my business in 2015, like 2 years once I got into the finance space, and I realized that this is where I want to be, and I love the industry. I ended up selling my company back in 2015, the screen printing and embroidery company. So now here I am. That was when I took on the finance brokerage opportunity. I was about 46 years old at the time. And starting over is a little scary, right? But I had a good little salary and some time under my belt, and I felt confident that I'd be able to make a home in the finance industry. So 3 years later, when we decided to part ways, here I am now again, three daughters, two dogs, and a wife, and a big mortgage. I'm starting back to zero again, no customers, and find myself starting Amerifi with 3 to 4 employees, starting out small and trying to rebuild all over again what I just got done building. So it was a little scary at that time back in 2017. And we started building the company up, started hiring, and things were going well. And we started doing really well, through the grace of God, I say. And 2.5 years into the Amerifi journey, one of my friends reached out to me and said that one of the company he was working with was looking to buy a broker shop and acquire a company. When he first reached out, I was like, "Now you got to be kidding me! I finally got out on my own, and things are going great. Nobody to answer to, and I'm making good money, and I really didn't want to sell at all." And the conversations just kept going and going and pushing, and we went out to lunch, and they just kept going towards the potential acquisition of Amerifi. So it took about 6 months, but we actually decided to sell the company, and we got acquired in late 2019 by a company called Nav out of Utah. That was, 150 to 200 employees, large corporate company. So that was, and it happened right before the coronavirus pandemic. So that was a blessing. That was a blessing from my side and a gift of God that we didn't have to go through that as a small business owner, which would have been much more detrimental. And that the corporate environment where they pivoted into doing the PPP loans and did very well throughout the pandemic. So we worked out. So it worked out for, if that makes sense. So stay in the corporate world for about 3 years. That was an amazing experience, learning how things operate on a corporate level for the first time in my life. Some of the things weren't natural for me with all the systems, and everything had to have a process and an SOP. And, that was all different for me. Decisions had to take time. I'm very hyper entrepreneur, and I make decisions quickly with my gut, whether I want to hire somebody, whether I want to bring on a new lender in our network, or whatever the decision may be. If it's a marketing decision, I like to move really quickly, and I trust my gut a lot, which, I think is a good thing. And it's also could be a bad thing, right? Depending on the decisions that I'll make. And, things don't work like that in the corporate world. Everything's got to be backed by data, decisions, reasoning. And, as much as I didn't like it, it was a great experience to learn about trusting the data and, combining what I like to say is combine the data and the gut and your experience, and then make the best decision is the best decision, because the devil's always in the details. It's not just the data alone. It's understanding the details behind the data that really make the best decision. So long story short, great experience. After 3.5 years, I think in 2022, I decided to part ways and leave once again, the third time in the finance space after 2 to 3 years in, and start all over again. I left on good terms, and they let me out of my non-compete clause, which is very nice of them, and still have many friends there today. That's when we launched Qualifi in, I believe, early 2022. I think we're about 3.5 years in now. So with Qualifi, I like to say that we're going to build something special here. We're not going to get sidetracked. We're going to build our dream and at least do our best to execute on that mission. We call it unfinished business, because it kept getting, the growth kept getting stopped each time just when we were starting to do really well. And this time we're going to try to see that plan all the way through, and take all those lessons and, more importantly, the failures. I realized that I learned so much more from what didn't go right and why it didn't go right than what did go right. And that's a valuable lesson. You hear a lot of people talk about it on social media, your failures, learn from your failures and your mistakes, but there's nothing more true than that. Those lessons and bumps and bruises that you take along the way make you so much better of a business owner or entrepreneur, because you have that experience on your belt. You did go through that adversity. So that's a lot of the takings and learnings that I've taken into Qualify. And we've built a really, really good team here, and we're experiencing a lot of growth right now, but it wasn't always easy in the beginning. We went through a lot of hard times and adversity, but right now it's the best it's ever been, knock on wood, thank God.
Wow, what a story. A few things I want to share. First of all, you're a truly driven entrepreneur, and it's an honor to be able to meet you and speak with you and learn from you. I can sense the energy every time we have a call. I can sense the energy through the camera, and hopefully I'll be able to shake your hand one day sooner than
Thank you.
later.
Appreciate the
Second of
kind
all,
words.
congrats on three daughters. I have one, and it's a challenge. She just turned one last week.
That's tough,
So
but that'll be a blessing. God bless. And then the daughters, the one thing I could say is each time I had my daughter, I wanted a boy. Because guys always typically want their son to play sports with, but I've been blessed with my three daughters. Two of them played sports and are very, very competitive athletes, field hockey
wow,
and played softball. So I'm very happy that I had three girls, and I wouldn't trade them for a million boys right now. It's like they stick with their dads, and it's just like greatest
yeah.
blessing in life is having three daughters.
Oh yes, I mean I can sense it as well. It's
You gotta
such a
get through that
blessing.
toddler stage that you're in, but once they I say the Disney years, that 3 to 11 are like the greatest years ever. You're gonna love it when you get home from work, and they run into the door, "Daddy's home." It's the greatest feeling in the world.
I love every second of her presence. It's such a blessing, biggest blessing. Absolutely, thank God. And yes, congrats on starting again. Say rebuilding or building from scratch again is 99 times harder. It seems like you're doing it over and over again and over again. So it's incredible journey, and the grind never stops. It's definitely a huge move, huge commitment, and you're going through it. And congrats on 3.5 years at Qualify. That's incredible.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it. I think the starting over part where I think a unique advantage that I've had is just because I didn't know anything different, right? I never even knew what
Mm,
investors were, if I can get investor capital to start up. And I always, like I said, I started in the very beginning just on the street corner selling outside the welfare office. And I learned at a very young age to just be able to buy for A and sell for B. Right, buy something for $5 and you could sell it for 10 or 8 or 9 or 12 or 15. Just that mindset of just going out there and taking action and just doing it versus trying to come up with this big elaborate plan and put structures together. I didn't know anything about any of that, right? So my only thing that I knew how is to buy something and sell it. And I feel like I have a God-given talent to be able to create relationships and build trust and just in sales in general. Of course that's helped shape who I am today. But just the biggest lesson I'd say is just take action. And if you have a business that you want to get into, just try to prove the concept. Go out and get one customer and make that customer happy and then get the next customer and the next customer. And it just snowballs and just, you don't need, obviously, of course, if you want to build $100 million company and you want to go out and raise capital, that's a whole different ballgame. You're not going to be able to do that, from the ground up, or it's going to take you 20 years, right? But
yeah,
if you just want to prove your concept, go out there and just do it. Just take action, right? It doesn't cost $1 million to go get one client.
yeah.
And whether you're into wholesale business, retail business, product based or service based, just take action and do it, right? You want to open up a hair salon, start cutting hair by yourself, right? And then you hire one person, then you go rent a little store. That's all I've ever known is just jumping out there and doing it. And I think that's really helped me in my career.
100%. So, Eddie, you've mentioned earlier that you now serve entrepreneurs and by entrepreneurs. If you could define what exactly is that you do, that you provide, what's the service that you help, and who are the primary, who's your primary target audience that you want to work with and help?
Yeah, great question. So, with my experience of just starting small businesses over and over and over again and building them into companies, million plus in sales, I just feel like I have a unique ability to relate to all the clients that we speak to on a daily basis, right? I know where they're at in a lot of scenarios. I've been there, so I could relate to what the challenges and the issues and the problems that they're going into, or that they're experiencing, whether clients are slow paying them or, they lost their biggest account
Mm,
or they have too much concentration and all their business coming from one client. And it's like I've just learned so much just from, not that I'm any smarter than anybody else, just all the experiences and just on the last 13 years being on the back end of, 10,000 plus transactions and different owners in different industries, all those learnings I feel really helps me understand our clients' situations and individual needs in a lot of cases. So that's where the for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs comes into play, where it just helps me better understand their needs and find the right solution that's going to help them, right? Because money comes in all different aspects, right? Whether it's a term loan, a line of credit, an SBA loan, which is like a 10-year term or, potentially a 30-year amortization. Every product that's out there has a unique and special situation that it's better for.
mm,
So just going out there and getting a loan, it might not, a term loan might not be the best fit. A line of credit might be a better fit where you just want to bridge your accounts receivable. So we learn through our experience how to put and find the best options for our clients when they need financing, right? And what Qualifi is today is we're a commercial finance broker, and we help clients that, number one, not getting much love from their conventional bank. They may have a great successful business doing millions of dollars in revenue. They may even have a successful bank line of credit for a million, $2 million, or a couple $100,000. And let's just say business is great and everything is good and they're growing and they need more money because they've outgrown their line. But what we typically see is conventional banks are very conservative. They don't like to take any risk that's not fully secured and backed by accounts receivable or inventory or hard assets. So those clients that hit that breaking point of growth where their business is going up, but their financial support is getting stagnant,
Mm,
that's where we kind of come in as a supplement to conventional bank financing. That's one area that we focus on. Clients that need more money, they're maxed out at their bank line, and they need more money, and we could we could subordinate and support them with additional lines of credit or other financing solutions. The other 80% of businesses out there that aren't fortunate enough to get and meet all the criteria and requirements for conventional bank financing, typically 2 to 3 years in business, have to have 2 to 3 years of profitable tax returns. That's where we see that many of the clients out there don't always meet that specific criteria where you can put 2 to 3 years of profitability back to back to back and year to date financials also being strong. That's one of the, like I said, the biggest areas that clients seem to, not all clients meet that criteria and then they be forced into the alternative market. Most banks want absolute minimum of 675 or 700 plus personal credit scores, good revenues, consistent revenue stream. So, conventional bank financing, of course, it's great rates starting at around prime, but it's also very challenging. And 80+% of businesses are unable to obtain bank financing. So we serve that whole marketplace as well. So, long story short, any business that's looking for money, whether it's for growth or maybe they're struggling and need to make payroll or operating expenses are out of control, or they just received a huge contract, or they just sold into a big box store and they need to stock up in inventory and they need that money to fuel that growth. That's where we kind of come in and help our clients.
great. And if you could summarize the client journey, typical client journey, how long does it take for them to get onboarded, get evaluated, maybe have a consultation behind their needs to learn more about and understand better their needs, and then finally getting that line of credit or whatever financing method support they might require?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. We try to do things a little bit different than the average brokerage firm out there. Every single client that comes to us, our job is to schedule an appointment. We call it our discovery call. 99% of those calls are done over Zoom in video,
Mhm.
just like this, face to face. So we really want to get to know our clients on a personal level. We want to learn in this discovery call, typically about 30 to 40 minutes. We want to understand all about the business, right? What they do, how they make money, how much money they're looking for, and what that need is for, right? The use of funds really helps us determine what product or what products may be the best fit for them, whether it be a line of credit, a short term financing, an SBA loan, for long term growth, or maybe they're looking to acquire a business. There's so many different products and so many different lines of credit out there. It's important for us to really understand the client's needs and the use of funds so we can get the best options on the table for them ultimately to make them make the best decision on behalf of the business, right? We're not here to sell anybody anything. Our job is to provide the best options that are available in the market to our clients so they can make the best decision on behalf of the business.
Love it. And I have to ask you, there are so many, as I observe the finance market for businesses, especially here in the United States, but pretty much right now globally as well, because everything becomes globalized. There are so many new, I guess, financing institution or banking institution that are don't follow the typical path like Bank of America, Chase, JP Morgan, all those banks, Wells Fargo, they're online, they don't have a bunch of branches. In fact, I've seen a bunch of those companies that I've never seen a branch office or location from. Like, I think Mercury comes to mind, one where you can, when you have a business, you can open a checking account. They, if I remember correctly, they have some sort of lines of credit, but mainly for business savings and checking account. But the benefit of it is that what they're trying to essentially, how they're trying to compete with, large banks like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, is the fact that you can transfer money quicker. You can transfer money in multiple currencies. You can you can set up wire transfers much faster, and it's just more digitalized version of a bank. What's your take on that? Have you seen it? Have you worked with any of those new banks, I guess you can call?
Yeah,
What
no,
is
it's a
the
real
first
it's a
area?
really good question. I've seen a few of them. There's online banks out there that are offering like, nice little 3, 4, 5% annual interest on high yield savings or checking accounts. That's kind of how they kind of lure you in to try to, to try to get your business, right? Everybody's fighting for the money, right? They want your deposits, right? That's what all these banks are trying to do, to capture your deposits. I don't have anything negative to say. Even Amex has a bank account that they offer like 3-4% plus
Yeah.
annual interest on. The only thing that I've encountered from my side is that some of these accounts could prohibit some of the lenders from funding into those accounts. I have encountered that, like some of these smaller banks, I've had lenders come back and say, "Hey, that's I don't want to mention any bank names, but that's a bank account that we can't fund." So I would be careful with going with a no name bank, because it could hurt them if they're going to need to go into the market for some
Mm,
financing. That's where you want to try to be with a conventional bank or regular, more mainstream type of bank, even if it's a local community bank. That would be the only thing negative, that where it could potentially hurt if they need money, and a bank and a lender's not willing to fund that specific bank account for the reason of the structure of the account, or whatever reasoning may be behind that. But yeah, there's a bunch of them out there that are popping up every day, online banks, and everybody's just trying to get those deposits, right? Just like the banks do.
yeah.
Hopefully that gives you some answer to your
That's
question.
actually a very valid reason right there because, like I said, there is obviously so much easier to hire people all around the world, to have partners and clients all around the world like us. We work with a bunch of companies from Australia, all over Europe. So sometimes, the payment methods was a tricky part, but that's what these companies leverage, essentially being making it easier for you to transfer money worldwide. And obviously now with the cryptocurrencies popping up
Yeah.
everywhere, that's going
Oh,
to be
everything's all about speed and convenience. And I just realized I
absolutely.
didn't answer the rest of your question when it comes to the business financing, right? We have lenders that can literally fund the same day. We get an application in
Wow.
early enough, we can submit it and get an instant approval. We have API systems with most of all the lenders that we work with, where we can immediately submit the file the right way, the package the way it's supposed to go, right to directly with the lender, to get a fast response, sometimes within the same hour. And if the client needs the money that fast, we can in fact fund, typically the same day. Every transaction, of course, doesn't fund same day. Everybody's not in emergency rush, but we many of our products can fund, we say 24 to 48 hours. We have other products where they may take much longer. For example, an SBA loan, which is a very specific product that gives the client a 10-year term. If it's real estate backed, sometimes it can go out to a 20 or 30-year amortization. So they could take 30 to 45 days to complete in most cases. But the majority of our revenue driven lines of credits typically take a couple days to get approved and funded and moved on. So it's a very fast paced industry. And we have a lot of products that could support the need. If a client does need money for payroll by Friday, we do that all the time. But we also have a lot of other good, strong products that may take a little bit longer to finance, that may be a better fit if clients do have time to allow us to get all the options and solutions that could be available to them.
Fantastic. I mean, that sounds like it's a great idea to schedule the discovery call and get evaluated. You mentioned long-term contracts or credits, lines of credits, and it reminded me of my second internship that I've done in my life. That was in Germany, in Frankfurt, for JP Morgan. And my job there was to work in the archives, digitalize their archives on the loans that they distributed to companies, corporations like BMW and car makers, Bayer AG, and those pharmaceutical companies. Those loans were, I think the smallest one was about $20 billion or euros, which would be 21, I guess.
Interesting.
That was insane, but it was just so nice to see the original contract go through this, hundreds of pages of the
Yeah,
contract.
it's amazing.
Those
It's a
numbers.
whole different world, but it's amazing seeing the numbers. There's mortgage lenders out there that are lending to other mortgage companies. They're doing, three, four, $500 million facilities like it's nothing. That's just the world that they live in.
Yeah, that was incredible experience, and I loved it. But that taught me that I don't want to be in a corporate world, really. So I was great to find out that through that. But it was a great experience. Now, if you look back at the 3.5 years, I know you're living a fast-paced world. For those who don't know, it was not easy to get Eddie on the podcast. He's super busy, which I obviously respect, and I want to be respectful of your time as well and all of my honored guests. But if you look back at the 3.5 years, what gives you most fulfillment in what you do currently with the company that you're part of?
It's a great question. Of course, just seeing our dreams come true, and that we're building the company that we've always set out to. But I'd say over the last 3.5 years, I've grown a lot in my faith. I feel like this whole journey is a grace, through the grace of God. I truly believe that this whole journey is just going the way it's supposed to be, the way it was meant to be. And one of the biggest things that we've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to do at Qualify is we started a charity called our Qualify Gift of
Mm.
Giving. And each month we choose a different employee to pick a charity that's near and dear to their heart. So they pick a charity each month and we make a substantial donation to that charity. And they basically explain to us why it's important to them. And, usually a family member might have had cancer or something along those lines. And just through the last, I mean, we've been doing it for about 18 months now. And it's just been a blessing just to see all the charities that we're able to donate to and be able to help. And that's really important to me because I always wanted to give back. And I took a long time to be able to do it. But now I'm thankful and I'm blessed to be in a position to be able to do that. And I'm super pleased and happy that we're able to make a difference in others' lives as well. And that's a big part of the journey is like our gift of giving, right? There's no better gift than being able to help someone else in need. And that's truly one of the biggest blessings that I feel in addition to the success that we're experiencing with the company right now.
That's spectacular. I love that idea and I love giving back. And that's why I love entrepreneurship in the first place, because you are able to be in a position, get to the position through all the struggles and sacrifice that you make, that where you can give back and impact someone's or save someone's life in for that matters. I love that. And I have a Latin phrase that you might never forget. Maybe you already know about that since you've mentioned you're a man of faith and you've mentioned it multiple times. Ora et labora means to pray and to work. That's what we are meant to do in our life.
Good one. So I've never heard that one, but I love it. And it's 100%. It's you have to, my goal is to incorporate Jesus into my life and continue to just be a better human every day and just continue to grow the same way we've learned to grow the business 1% better every day. That's how I'm trying to grow in my faith 1% better every day. And I just feel like there's a whole backstory to my life that we didn't go into. But I grew up in challenging environments where my entire family was addicted to drugs, whether
Mm,
it's heroin, crack, you name it, every drug. I've never touched a drug, but my both parents and both siblings were also affected by the same disease. And I've seen that my whole entire life. And somehow, even all my friends are like, dude, I don't know how you grew up and how you didn't follow that same path, and when I think about that, why me, right? And I just feel like there's always been that little angel on my shoulder. And I say that that's God just chose a different path for me. It's not that I knew any better and I could have easily went down that same path, but for some reason I didn't. My parents did show me a lot of love. And I think that helped get me through. They weren't abusive in any way, but they had their own issues and their own problems. But I just look back and realize my whole life, it feels like God's always been on my shoulders watching me. And I just feel like I'm very blessed for that. And I contribute a lot of that to that.
I love that. And that's it's a great example of sometimes when you realize that there's a higher power and you just let go, it might be a good idea because you almost feel like that burden is lifted off your shoulders and you can just go with that faith that
Yeah.
there's someone watching over us and I am here on a mission. I have something to do. I was sent out here to follow with that mission and do it to the best of my ability. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm glad that you
Yeah.
grew up, be a man
Learning
you are, and great example.
learning every day. It's a stewardship, right? And God's entrusting us with, all the blessings, and it's what you do with them that counts, right? So I'm not perfect, far from it, but I'm learning every day and trying to be the best human I can.
100%. You're inspiration for many, Eddie. If you had an opportunity to sit across the table from Eddie, who is starting out there on the street selling perfume and getting into all kinds of businesses, what advice would you have for him?
Oh, man, I watch so many videos on social media, especially the School of Hard Knocks videos with James, where he interviews all the millionaires and billionaires. I'm sure you watch them too, and all the inspirational videos and everything. I have a few, I guess you call them role models growing up, not so much businessmen, but people that I drew a lot of inspiration from. Some real, some fictional. Muhammad Ali was a big inspiration for me
Mm,
growing up. Always defying the odds and shocking the world. His famous line, "I'm going to shock the world." Roberto Duran, Panamanian boxer, which is one of my favorites. Over the last, I'd say 10 plus years, I would look at Kobe Bryant. I loved
mm,
Kobe, been a Kobe fan, the Kobe Michael story, who's the GOAT. But Kobe Bryant, all his videos, and even Michael Jordan, it just comes down to effort. It comes down to effort and action and how bad you want success. If you want it, you have to put the work in. To get rich quick schemes, they're not going to work. You're going to end up in jail or you're going to end up with zero because there is no get rich quick scheme. If you want the success, and so many people we interview people every day. Oh, I would love to make 100, $200,000 a year, right? But are you willing to put the real work in that it takes to get there? And you have to have determination. You have to have work ethic. You have to take action. You have to always want to be open to learning. That's one of the biggest things, right? I thought I was the greatest salesman in the world at age 30. And now after learning Sandler training and building Sandler training into our culture, I realized how much I thought I knew that I didn't know. And it makes me so much of a better business owner today. You just don't know what you don't know. So always have your mind, always keep your mind completely open to learning. I learn new things literally every single day, still now, as old as I am. I learned from our team. We have our meetings in this same conference room here, and we have 16 sales reps that come here that have all different ideas all the time. And just having all that and an open mind to things that may work better, or you might not be seeing it that way, where I can't tell you how many countless times I've learned from the team, or even the younger generation, they come in with so many fresh ideas that I might not be thinking, and it's just it's amazing. So just be open-minded and don't be afraid to put the work in and the sweat equity, because it'll pay off in the long run. And you have to be resilient. Do not stop at that first failure, because I promise you, every millionaire out there in this world, they failed multiple times. So don't get down on yourself. Learn that lesson when you're down and fight through it to get through it, and you'll be successful. You never lose until you quit.
I love that. My favorite podcast called the Founders Podcast or Founders Podcast. Not sure if you heard about them, by David Senra. And his podcast is essentially breaking down. He reads biographies or autobiographies and then records a podcast on it. For first 7 or 8 years, it was just him, David, recording a podcast based on the book. And if you listen to just a few episodes by guys who invent the Dyson guy who invented the vacuum cleaner, it took him like 13 or 14 years of
Yeah.
trial and error to develop first,
Yeah.
not even first like huge success, like first product that worked and that did what he wanted to do. And if you look at others, I mean, you can't give up on the first failure for sure. I love that
You
advice
can't.
from
I
you.
mean, even going back, this is our fourth go around in the finance industry, and there's so many lessons that it's priceless. Getting those scars and bumps and bruises, it's priceless, because the lessons that they're teaching you, just think about it. You're not going to make that same mistake again, because you already know what not to do.
Yeah,
So just take everyone in, and every failure or everything that doesn't work, or it's not working great, or it's something that's subpar, it's an area of opportunity. It's not a failure. If something didn't work, it's an area to grow.
absolutely. Learn and grow. I have it on my background on every device.
That's
Learn
it.
and grow.
Every day, 1% better.
Love it. Are you going to watch the fight December 19th, Anthony Joshua, AJ?
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
who's he fighting? I'm a huge boxing fan, and I'm extremely disappointed over the last several years that it feels like the industry's like fading away now to the UFC, which I also like, and the bare knuckle boxing and all that stuff. But I just feel like boxing lost its steam over the last several years, because they tried to make everything about pay-per-view, and they lost that trend of where it was on TV every week and everybody knew all the fighters. And now it's like, if you're not spending $100 to watch a boxing match, the whole world loses sight of who people are and all the different divisions and all the different fighters. And I think they shot themselves in the foot with the pay-per-view. Not that pay-per-view was a bad idea, but they stopped televising all these good fights that we used to get to watch. Back in my day growing up, I would watch Muhammad Ali fight every Saturday on Wide World of Sports, and like these amazing heavyweight battles. And they just lost that, I feel like, and you're losing a lot of touch. The only time I hear about boxing, if it's like a major, major fight. But what about all the other fights that are going on? You don't even hear about them nowadays.
I share the view 100%. For us, growing up in Europe, in Poland, whenever we wanted to watch Mike Tyson, I remember the whole neighborhood would get together because not
Yeah,
everyone had TV. And for us, it was usually 5 or 6 a.m. So we
that's
had to
awesome.
be up late. My dad would
Yeah,
wake me up around 4:30.
they're the good old days, man. I know I'm a lot older than you, but the fighters when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, it's like I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again. Like there were so many warriors. Like I don't know if you know any of the guys, Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. There was just like it was endless, the fighters that were all superstars and just made boxing so great. I mean, I used to subscribe to Ring magazine. I miss it. I hope it comes back and they rebuild the sport back. And obviously, there's definitely a need for it, and everybody loves it.
Yes, well, Dana White wants to take over the boxing industry as well. So hopefully he loves boxing probably even more than UFC or
Who,
mixed
Dana
martial
White?
arts. Dana White,
That
yes.
would be amazing because he knows how to market for sure, and it would bring it
Yes.
back. They
But
get it, right? They have the events every month now, and it's. I just think it would be phenomenal. I would love to see boxing come back.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's funny because whenever sometimes when there was like a huge UFC event, they recorded him watching boxing on his phone while there was fights going on, and he was like
That's
right next
great.
to the cage. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
mean, I'm a mixed martial artist. I've done it for 7 or 8 years in my teenage years when I was in Germany. But I love boxing. I have huge respect for it.
That's
I have to
awesome.
disappoint you though. The fight AJ is doing, it's probably for money. He's fighting Jake Paul.
Oh, that one. Okay, I see that. It's crazy. That and those fights are disappointing. Even the Tyson one with Jake Paul was kind of like a joke. What are you gonna do? It's all part of business. They're making money. God bless them. Whatever
Yeah,
works, whatever makes your money. But hopefully, we could see boxing come back to the sport that it used to be. Even in your time, like Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Shane
yeah,
Mosley, Tito Trinidad. I mean, they were all amazing warriors that I loved to watch. Arturo Gatti was one of my favorites. Him and Mickey Ward. I don't know if you've seen that
yeah.
trilogy. Um, Amazing fight. So hopefully it comes back. We have two MMA guys in our company too, Johnny Crawford and Nick Dinger. They're both fighters and UFC guys.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow, I love that. Yeah, that's looking forward to the gala in January. There's going to be a huge card. So the main card, we just had a nice event last week as well. So we will always watch with my wife UFC and we been friends. So that's always a great time. And hopefully boxing will come back to glory. Actually, I was doing garage sale at my mom's house because she's selling the house, and an old friend neighbor came over. He's 73, and I couldn't remember where I know him from until he shook my hand. He shook my hand, almost squeezed it to the tears came off my cheek. And then I remember that he is a boxing coach, and he told me that there is we have apparently here a handful of former world champions here in the Coachella Valley where we live in Palm Springs area, and I forgot the name from him, but a big name is supposedly coming back. He wants to cut down 3 weight classes, which will be ridiculous, but I guess it's he's trying himself. So yeah, he trained multiple world champion boxers, and great guy, great shape, 73, super fit, stiff, on his bike,
Wow.
running, doing all kinds of things. Incredible
Yeah,
man.
man.
That's the culture I love, and that's what I'm really hoping to see more and more. Not only about doing the show and acting like a fool sometimes, but honoring the world of martial arts,
Yeah.
not only mixed
Amazing.
martial arts.
Absolutely.
Final question for you, Eddie. I know you're super busy. What are you most excited about in the near future? Can be business related, doesn't have to be. Anything that you're particularly excited about?
Just really seeing how big we can grow Qualify. We hit our kind of like hit our dream of breaking 20 million a month in funding. And we just
Love it.
recently did that for the first time in
Congrats.
October. And we're all experiencing challenges. There's a lot of challenges that come with all this growth, especially with technology, where we're building out APIs and we have all this new technology. We're implementing AI into our process to streamline and make it even faster. Just really we're learning from all the growth, and it's pushing us and challenging us to for me to more delegate and just focus on the vision and the path of the company versus being in the trenches and the weeds like I love to be so much. So as a management team, we're all being challenged with the growth. And just so our goal over the next 3 to 6 months is to really settle in where we are now with the growth stage that we hit, streamline as efficient as possible before we start scaling again and growing. So we built a little bit of a monster. I like to say it's like a runaway train. We're building it as we fly the plane. So it's fun, it's exciting, but it's also stressful and painful with the growth. So we're going to do everything we can to structure and put processes in place and just to try to continue to grow and streamline and make it like a turnkey operation. But it's much easier said than done.
I love it. I can't wait to see you guys hit 100 million month in funding. If I recall most impactful lessons from studying entrepreneurs and other businesses and having now 70 guests on the podcast itself, with where some of the companies were founded in 1866 and multi-generational companies.
Yeah.
I think the operators that are growing and scaling and are not only driven, but they are really good at creating chaos and urgency. And it sounds like you're really good at that. Chaos to it's not always will be perfect. You can't have everything perfect if you want to grow. There needs to be some sort of chaos, and you need to be good at creating chaos, creating that urgency, and going through it. And like you said, and figuring out as you grow, as you go, and taking your lessons. So I think nothing can stop you guys, and I love seeing you guys grow. Thank you so much for this fantastic conversation this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys document the journey online and
I
LinkedIn YouTube
appreciate that
videos.
so much. I appreciate you having us on. I just want to comment on your last comment, the word that you mentioned, chaos. It's so funny that you say that because I feel like my whole life, even as a child, I had to grow up in chaos. So I think I've learned how to deal with chaos and how to live with, we'll call it structured chaos, if there's even a such thing. And I think that's really equipped me to be able to deal with all the trials and tribulations that you run through in business because business does get chaotic. And I've always been a guy that runs by the seat of my pants and making decisions day to day and acting on gut instinct and emotion. And that's always been how I'm wired. Very energetic and very gut chaos driven. And I kind of feel like I've always thrived in chaos, as crazy as that sounds, but it creates that energy and that sales energy on the floor. And as you learn and grow though, like one, it's like right now we're touching on 30 employees and we've always had like 8 to 15. What we're starting to realize is at this stage, it has to be more corporately driven a little bit because there has to be policies and rules in place that people have to follow and that this system has to be tightened so everybody can follow a streamlined system. So yes, while chaos is a big part of the sales energy and the emotions in the day to day, we're also trying to back that with like systems and data and processes that are going to help make everybody's life easier. But yeah, chaos is a big part of it. I love that you mentioned that and touching that chaos and
Yeah,
energy and all that emotion is a big part of the sales business.
100%.
So
Yes.
thank you for thinking of that. And again, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. You guys been great.
Thank you, Eddie.
Have a great day, man.